Man. Well, wasn't that a debacle? Washington State 37, Texas Tech 16. Dropped their first game of the season, but you know, I said last week that yes, it was a close game. Texas Tech really struggled against Abilene Christian, but if they beat Washington State, if they go on to have a good season, then who cares? They got the W. But turns out what we saw against Abilene Christian wasn't an anomaly, wasn't I mean, that is who Texas Tech is. The Red Raiders are just not a good football team right now. That's the bottom line. They're not a good football team. Hats off to Washington State. They played a good game. They deserved that win. They played soundly, sound football. Texas Tech, on the other hand, made mistake after mistake after mistake. Look at the stats here. 4 turnovers. They also were stopped on 4th down on 4 of their 5 attempts. I mean, that's essentially 8 turnovers. Excuse me. In a game that really started out as kind of a defensive struggle, Washington State broke it open in the second quarter. But a lot of that was due to, again, turnovers and Texas Tech turning it over on downs. So, no Taj Brooks for the Red Raiders. And, yeah, obviously that's a big loss. But Texas Tech threw the ball 60 times tonight. And that's way too much. And most of those were short passes. Barry Morton did not have a good night. It's one of his worst nights as a Red Raider. The defense, look, they gave up 416 yards, 301 rushing yards. That's not good. But they were put in a lot of bad situations. They actually were Washington State was only 3 of 13 on 3rd down. So Texas Tech actually, they improved greatly on 3rd down tonight. But it wasn't the defense's fault that they lost. Special teams had a couple blunders, especially early, but the offense was the offense was terrible. It was. There's no other way to say it. And I think I know the book dictates when to go for it or not, but since it was a defensive struggle early in the game, I feel like going for it in some of those cases was just, sometimes you got to throw the book out the window. And I know that goes against analytics. I get it. Trust me. I get the theory. But sometimes if you're in a defensive struggle, you feel like your offense isn't doing great, but your defense is rising to the occasion, maybe you punt the ball and play field position. And it's not what happened. Again, 37-16, Washington State won. A lot of penalties too. I need to see exactly how many penalties Texas Tech had, but it was a lot. 8 for 65, 10 for 81. So, that's 21 penalties in 2 weeks. That's really bad. I thought I might just be talking to myself tonight, but there's a lot of comments on here. It says, you and me, my friend, wallowing in misery. Yeah, I don't believe in only showing up for the good times. It's late. I'm the kind of dude, if I'll say my team loses, I just want to shut it out. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to hear anybody talk about it, but this is my gig. And let's be honest, I've had to talk about Texas Tech football a lot after losses before. So here we are. I'm going to show up even in the bad times. All right, big rumor that Morton refused surgery. You mean after the season? I don't know if he refused. At least I was told by Morton and the coaches that he was told that he wasn't going to require surgery. So Joel Heim says, tough one tonight. Man, it was a really tough one. And it felt like that opening fumble on the kick return, the offense just struggled throughout the game, but certainly early. turnover, and it just felt like tonight was a struggle. Honestly, I may have turned the game off by halftime, if not sooner. Again, if it wasn't my gig. So I understand if some of y'all did that. You didn't miss much, but misery, as some of y'all said. Bottom line is, again, this isn't a good football team right now. And it's beyond just let's be honest, 21 penalties, that's poorly coached. That's a poorly coached team. I don't see any of the scheme on either side of the ball, really, but especially on offense, giving these guys any kind of advantage right now. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. Seriously, if I'm wrong, if I'm missing something, then go ahead, correct me. I would love for you to, but I don't have any personal vendetta against the coaches or anything like that. I actually like the coaches, and I have great access to them. Their interaction's great. I can't complain about any of it, but you got to call it like you see it, right? I've pledged to do that, and what I see is a poorly coached football team right now. And if I was the coach or one of the coaches, I was looking myself in the mirror, I'd have to admit that, to be honest. Pre-snap penalties, turnovers, miscommunication. It's just go on and on and go on and on. All right. Definitely ask Joey a few very tough questions. Sure, I have no problem with asking coaches questions. Part of me wants to just go in there and be like, just sit there, because what are they going to say after that? Why does the team suck so bad right now? Is that my question? I don't know. It's Saturday night. It's late or early Sunday morning. We'll see what I come up with by Monday morning. Reckham says, how many times have we seen that same game over the past 15 years? What is the real problem here? I don't know if we've seen that same game. We've seen a bunch of crap games. Let's be honest. It's Mike Leach night in Pullman. And since Mike Leach, the times where we walked away feeling fully satisfied as people who follow Texas Tech have been few and far between. They've happened at Arkansas, a couple Oklahoma State games after losing for a decade to Oklahoma State. Some bowl game wins that were nice: Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Cal, Arizona State, way back, a decade ago. But for the most part, it's been a lot of frustration. Let's be honest. Tyler King says at this point it has to be a coaching issue, right? Yeah, I think, again, like I said, I have good access. I personally like these coaches. So, it'd probably be in my best interest to not agree with that. But look, I've been taught since I was a little boy by my daddy, if nobody else. And then, of course, going through, having done this for a couple of decades now, and my Uncle Rico days was playing and all that, pre-snap penalties and a lot of penalties is a sign of poor coaching. And, we've seen that for 2 weeks now. And it's really, the offense doesn't need to self-implode. It already has enough struggles. So, that's poor coaching. I really believe that. And then again, defensively, I see the scheme. It's a lot easier to say tonight, I guess, as opposed to last week. But I believe Tim DeRuyter is a good defensive coordinator. I really do. And I'm not saying I don't believe that Joey McGuire is a bad coach overall. But right now, what they're putting out there, the product in year 3 of the McGuire era, based on these things that I'm laying out there for you, and the things that y'all see, and it doesn't look like a well-coached football team. And I think if he was being honest, which he normally is, with that kind of stuff, he'd say the same thing. So, yeah, everybody's got stink on them. Everybody within the program has some stink on them for a type of performance like tonight. Now, look, everybody has bad games. That happens. But here's the thing. They had a bad game last week and barely survived against ACU. come back this week and to throw this performance out there, you got to say this is the input we have. This is the information we have. And the information tells us this is a poorly coached team that's just not very good right now. And that's the truth. We'll see if they can get better. It would be a good coaching job if they do improve and end up like salvaging some kind of season. But and the last 2 years, they've had very strong Novembers to at least get to a bowl game. But all the talk this offseason was that's not going to be good enough this year. They need to actually win and actually matter in November. And right now, I have a very hard time conceiving of any possible way that this team is going to matter or factor into any kind of Big 12 race or play games that are meaningful outside of just trying to make a bowl game in November. So I hope they prove me wrong. And again, I have no personal vendetta. I want to make that and it's actually the opposite. I feel bad saying that. I really do as a human being, but it is my job to be genuine, to tell people who will actually listen to me what I really believe. And what I really believe is right now we're seeing a poorly coached football team. Any truth to the rumor that Morton refused surgery? JFC 23. That's the second time you said that. Are you talking about after the season or tonight or what? I mean, I'm assuming you mean after the season. Again, I've been told by Bear Morton and the coaches that it was deemed that he had an option. Like you could have surgery, but it's not necessarily going to improve. But you could have. Basically, they said you don't need to have surgery. It might help, but it might ruin your shoulder too. And so the Morton camp and all involved decided not to have surgery. So I get why you're asking me that, but I don't, that's not why Texas Tech got smoked tonight. Joel Himes says pretty bad. Yeah, it was it was pretty bad. Poor Bob 1122 says he felt like a fireable game for Kitley. I don't know how many more 10 and 17 point games he's going to get. I mean, all y'all are quick to fire people. I get it. It's highly competitive, and track record isn't good. They keep making excuses. Maybe it's just not the right fit for him in Texas Tech right now. But I definitely don't like what I saw from the offense tonight. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Billy Blueheart says, looks like we're down to last year's O-line again. I mean, yeah, the offensive line hasn't been good. That's a big problem. And obviously the injuries. I mean, Porsche is probably going to be in the man, I've lost my train of thought. Maybe I am too. But obviously it's a head injury. He's probably going to be out next week. Looks like Vinny Scurry, who many thought, going into the season would be your best offensive lineman. He may be out for the season. Looks like that was a knee injury or something, but I don't know exactly what it was. Concussion protocol. Maybe I'm in the concussion protocol after watching that game, but that's what Porsche is probably going to be in. So he'll probably be, out next week. But I'm no doctor. I have no idea. So we'll have to see. And Buchanan has not been good at right tackle when he's been in. He wasn't good against ACU. Gave up that sack tonight. He's had multiple holding penalties to compensate for him not being good. That's really disappointing in my mind. But they're going to have to figure some things out. It doesn't get any easier in terms of like injuries. Obviously, Taj Brooks being out tonight was huge. You missed Harvey Dyson on defense. And then now the offensive line already has a couple of big injuries. So it's pretty scary. JW says, are you ready to see Cam Brown or Will Hammond behind center? Whew, that's pretty quick to give up on Morton. Not going to lie. I mean, it was just a week ago we were talking about, he played almost a perfect game and all that stuff. I know it was against ACU. I get it. But do we just give up on a quarterback like that? Because he was bad tonight. I get it. I was ready to see one of them tonight. Like, all right, that's bad. Go sit down. Like, let's not make this any worse. And he was bad enough, and this is going to be a thing for him, where people are speculating if he's injured. if he's still injured. He was airing the ball out on some. Well, okay, they were throwing a lot of short passes. Don't get me wrong. The dink and dunk offense. That's what Kittley's offense should be called at Texas Tech, is the dink and dunk offense. But he did air it out a couple of times, and his arm looked fine. But I don't know. Now, in terms of seeing, I want to see something else on offense. I don't know if I'm ready to just bench Baron Morton permanently or going into the next game. But, I mean, Cam Brown gives you a running option, so maybe you could be more competitive. I don't know why they didn't try and run the ball more tonight. It seems like they were having some success doing that. I mean, obviously later you were trying to play catch up, but I mean earlier. I thought Valdez looked pretty good. It was the least of my worries tonight. And Dickey showed, a little spark. So I think they still should have ran the ball, and maybe with Brown open some things up. I know with Will Hammond, I'm very skeptical of anything I've heard in terms of from fall camp, because so much has turned out to be wrong. I hate when that happens. Someday I'll learn just only trust my eyes and what I see, not what even very good sources tell me from camp. But I have heard that Hammond tore it up both in spring and fall camp, and that people are very high on his future. But he's a true freshman, so I don't know if I'm ready to throw him to the wolves. So maybe it is. Maybe you want to see more Cam Brown, but I also think it's dangerous just to pull the plug on a quarterback after one bad game. So, but then again, Baron Morton hadn't proven he's a very steady, dependable quarterback yet. So, got to do something to shake things up. That's for sure. Rocco Purley says if Taj being out is used as an excuse during the presser, he's going to lose his mind. Yeah, I don't want to hear that crap either. Obviously, that's a big loss. You lose an all Big 12, all American running back, but that's part of the game. And Taj being out didn't cause him to have, 10 penalties and all the turnovers and poor decisions, in my opinion, to go for it on fourth down some. And I know that McGuire is going to defend, going for it on fourth down, but man, it really hurts when you don't get it, especially situationally. Like I said, early in the game, it was clear to me, like Vegas, the over-under had it at 65. And everybody's like, do the over, do the over, do the under, do the over. Anytime I see a spread like that in a game like this, where you're thinking Washington State, Texas Tech, obviously both from the Leach tree. Washington State put up 70 last week. Texas Tech put up 52. I see an over-under at 65 between these two teams that put up over 120 last week. That's a trap. Vegas knows something. And so, I wasn't that surprised. Actually, I think I picked Texas Tech to win. Got to fess up to that, 34-31. So I did think it was going to be, a less scoring game, a lighter scoring game than I think a lot of people thought. So it started out that way, even more so than what I thought, of defensive struggle, then those turnovers and going for it, turnover on downs. And all of a sudden the defense was, way backs against the wall. And, you're only going to hold up so long. So, and you lost the field position battle for the entire first half. So, yeah, to go back to your question, I don't want to hear that, or your statement, I don't want to hear that Taj Brooks was the reason. There were so many reasons why Texas Tech lost the game tonight. And it wasn't just because Taj didn't play. Joel Heim says, I want to hear from the coach, see his opinion. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how much media made it out to Pullman tonight from Lubbock. I didn't make it. There was no way with the time involved in coming back and forth that I was going to make it out there. But it's not going to be worth it. I'm just going to be honest. He'll own up to some things, because I do think Joey McGuire is he's a stand-up guy. But we'll have the press conference here Monday locally and talk about it. But it's late enough that I don't even know and they do this on the road anyways. It's definitely after a loss, but sometimes after a win too. If it's late, they won't post it. Texas Tech won't on their social media a lot of times, just because they got to get on the plane and come back. So I wouldn't expect a post-game presser tonight. But hey, I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. Jose Escabe said, "No whiskey tonight." No whiskey tonight. I'm afraid if I started down that path, my bartender would overserve me. My bartender being me. So I'm good tonight. Honestly, it felt worth it after the ACU game, but tonight it's not even worth it. It's like it was just a slow, drawn out like torture. Like that's enough. Uh, I feel almost like binging on some late night Whataburger or something instead. Instead of just getting wasted. I want to enjoy NFL Sunday tomorrow with my son, to be honest. So I'm not going to waste it on that performance tonight. But cheers to all y'all getting after it. I get it. Live for today. Live it up. Reckham says, also, aren't we air raid anymore? Like move on and change the offensive culture. Also, we aren't air raid anymore. Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be like a spinoff of air raid. I mean, even Kingsbury would say he's not air raid, even though there's so many of the principles that were with his offense. Same thing with Kidley coming off of Kingsbury's, coaching tree, which is all off of Leach course and how money. But I mean, it doesn't feel like the air raid, that's for sure. It doesn't have the same effect. The Sigma code says, I just flat out don't understand how we continually recruit fairly well and just get embarrassed by teams who clearly don't do it as well. So frustrating. Yeah, I did recruiting breakdown, how they stack up at Washington State and Texas Tech. I'm going to do that every week. It's on Inside the Red Raiders. It is behind a paywall. I'll also do it on the radio on the Rock and Pregame, Rock 101, kind of, break it down. Washington State, it's like the past 5 classes head to head and then notable players, expected to play in the game from all those classes, including the transfers. Washington State's classes were consistently anywhere from 60 to 80 nationally. And Tech's, a couple of those, like at least one of those were like 75th or something. I think it was 2021, Wells's last recruiting class. But then from 2022 to 2023 and 2024, I mean, you have top 25 class with 24. Those guys are young, fair enough. 23, it was top 30. And 2022, which was not McGuire's first full cycle. He came in and kind of augmented what Wells and the previous staff were doing, but it was, I don't know, mid 40s, which is better than 60s or 80s. And the transfer classes, even under Wells, were significantly better. So, I mean, it's not me coming up with these recruiting rankings. It's people, almost all of them, that really could care less about Texas Tech. It's just rating the players. So it's not like there's a bias, at least towards Texas Tech in that. And they all, basically every class, all 5, including the transfers, was rated higher for Texas Tech than Washington State. So you can't say that Washington State was just a more talented program or had more talented players than Texas Tech. That's not what happened tonight. Garrett has said the defense took steps in the right direction is about the only positive I could say. Yeah, absolutely. The defense played more like I was expecting tonight than against ACU, that's for sure. I was shocked by that against ACU. But think about it this way, and it really just hit me tonight, like just now for the first time tonight. But imagine if Tech had lost to ACU too, and they were 0-2 right now, losing to ACU and at Washington State. I mean, at least the defense did step up and get that stop on the 2-point conversion. But to your point, defense played much better, came up with some turnovers, stopped Washington State on 4th down a couple of times. They did give up a lot of rushing yards, but that defense was out there a lot. Offense put the defense in so many bad situations, and the head coach with some of his decisions put the defense in some bad decisions. So I thought overall the defense took a pretty big step forward, but I mean it was for naught. CJ Stark says time to fire Kitley. He has to go. Yeah. Something needs to change. This offense hadn't been good. There's been small snippets since Kitley's been here that has shown promise. I think the end of 2022, when Tech won like 4 games in a row, it showed some, signs of having some success. But I mean, it almost seems like Tech has to score on a gimmick play, whether it be a flea flicker or a wide receiver screen pass. I mean, so far this year, I have not seen a big improvement from the offense. If you put both these games together, coming off ACU, it's like, all right, I mean, feel a little better. It is ACU, but let's see what happens moving forward. I'm not a big. I have actually written a story saying it's time to let Cliff Kingsbury go, and honestly, I didn't enjoy that process at all. But it was more about the roster upheaval, which is kind of like that's kind of the norm now. But this was before the transfer portal and all that. Yeah, I thought the whole program was going into a hole that was going to be the longer Kingsbury stayed around, the deeper the hole was going to be harder to dig out of. But I didn't enjoy that, and I stay out of the you should fire this, fire that, unless it has to be extreme. That was an extreme case, in my opinion. Some of you are going to say, "Hey, this Kitley is extreme." I know this; it's very competitive, high stakes, big business college football, and the offense isn't getting it done. I mean, those are all true statements. Brian Topless Bar, my boy, I enjoyed chatting with you last week. He says, do you agree that Morton holds the ball too long? It seems like previous Killy QBs had that problem as well. I don't know. It seemed like his timing, Joe Yeager on Inside the Red Raiders in a video we did, I think actually before the season, said that sometimes Morton is too just frenetic. And it seems like he's too late on some passes and in terms of reading defenses, but also seems like he speeds up things too much. And I actually heard the announcer say both of those things tonight, and it's hard to disagree with. So I would say that it seems like Morton is still learning how to read defenses, read coverages, and is still struggling with the timing in the offense right now. I think that's a true statement. Man, I don't know how to read your name. So I'm not trying to offend you. I just extra E Nola Salas is what I'm going to say. He says, I agree. Very poorly coached football team. Ask why we are mentally weak and can never fight back from adversity. Oh, that's a leading question, first off, something I try to avoid. And one thing I notice is that people want me to talk shit to coaches publicly in a press conference. And that is like, you see some people do that. They're trying to get attention for themselves. I try and be professional. I know I was drinking whiskey on the last live stream, but it's a YouTube live stream, at midnight, whatever. But in terms of how I treat people, I try and treat people right. And to me, if I, asking why they played poorly, why they made so many mental errors, why, I have no problem with that. But telling a coach, making a statement like that, leading and saying, hey, your team is weak and you never fight back, that's not cool. That's not how you, in my opinion, that's not how you handle your business. So I understand you wanting to hear that, but I will ask something to the effect of, why the team is struggling and, why so many pre-snap penalties, something, and why the offense was so ineffective. He said, Wazoo showed a lot more fight from less talented players. It's crazy. Well, they are less talented, but I wouldn't say – here's one thing I'll say about Washington State that I noticed in doing that breakdown. Both in the defensive backfield and the offensive line, they had veteran guys that had been at Washington State for years. So all 5 of their starting offensive linemen were recruited to Washington State in either the 2020 or 2021 recruiting classes. Probably by Clay McGuire or so, or he helped develop them. Ironically, Texas Tech's current offensive line coach, as opposed to Texas Tech, who had one returning offensive lineman and brought in a bunch of transfers. I guess 2 if you count Sheridan Wilson, one returning starter. Anyways, I mean that's a position that you need cohesion, veteran guys who know the program, and then also in their defensive backfield. At least 2, if not 3 of their starters were from those classes that had been around since 2020, 2021. And I think that's where you saw Washington State really shine. Obviously, the quarterback had a good game, but I think part of that was because, offensive line, the cohesion there. And then the defensive backfield did a number on Tech's offense, clearly with all the turnovers and everything. So, yes, on paper, Texas Tech's, and I broke this down on the radio show too, but on paper, Texas Tech's recruiting classes are stronger, but you see cohesion, veterans sticking around, and in some really key position groups for a long time at Washington State, and that scared me going into the game. Jacob's View says offense seemed too excited with Yak and went to horizontal passing game to compensate for Taj out. Yeah, I am going to ask probably Kitley that on Monday because, of course, he has a presser too. It's just why so much horizontal and not more down the field. I don't know if I'll get a real answer or not, to be honest. But it did seem, and they had some success in the screen game. Don't get me wrong; they had a couple of big plays, but overall the offense struggled. It seemed like Washington State didn't have to worry about the vertical passing game very much. And that was disappointing. Joel Heim said, "I'm worried about UNT, to be honest." Yeah, I am too. If you care about Texas Tech football at all, you should be worried about everybody on the schedule. I mean, this team could barely beat ACU at home in the home opener. And, I mean, everybody else on the schedule is more talented than ACU, including UNT. So, I said, let's see what happens the rest of the season, and then we'll judge that game against ACU. Was it a precursor of this is how good Texas Tech is, and they're going to struggle all year? Or was it an anomaly, and we're going to look back at like, hey, at least good thing they won that game? Well, if you lose to UNT, then it's going to be like, wow, your one win was a 1-point victory over an FCS team, all due respect to ACU, in overtime. How bad is this team? And what all does this mean? So all of a sudden, that UNT game is ginormous. You got to win that game. If you're going to have any kind of season, you got to win it. Let's see what this is. Adrian Slay says, I think if what's his name didn't get hired as a head coach elsewhere, we'd be in a lot better situation. Sonny Cumbie, I think you're talking about Louisiana Tech. Yeah. There was something about Sonny Cumbie. I didn't always agree with his play calling, but the way he rallied the team after Wells got fired, the players responded to him. There's just, even as a player, his senior year as a quarterback at Tech, he wasn't the most talented quarterback, that's for sure, but there was just something about him. Maybe that would have been a better fit, to be honest, but I guess we'll never know. Gary Puckett says Morton needs to be benched. I don't think he's going to be, unless he's hurt or something. CJ Stark said this guy Kitley gets paid millions to call screenplays over and over, but he should be fired 10 minutes ago. Adrian Slay says Kitley doesn't seem to be on earth right now. Jacob's View says his arm is fine. Who is that? You talking about Morton or Taj? Adrian Slay says guy is in a dream. Irvin says, what's the solution, Jarrett? Well, like right now, immediately, I don't know about benching Morton per se, but maybe mixing in Cameron Brown some more just to give you a fighting chance in terms of a running quarterback who's just going to move the ball some. In terms of just like if I'm looking just to win the game against UNT, like forget block, which is what you should be thinking about, really, right? I mean, not what it looks like, not what people are going to say, not whose feelings you're going to hurt. And I don't think necessarily Cameron Brown's a better quarterback than Baron Morton, but offense isn't working, or at least it didn't tonight, running the way it is. And it's kind of a finesse team. But then again, I don't know if the offensive line is good enough to be any kind of power running team or anything like that. So you're really hamstrung by a couple of things, but I think at least having a true run threat in Cameron Brown might open up some other things for the whole offense. And then honestly, I know like Coach McGuire said, hey, you won. Guys, keep your head up. Don't ever apologize for a win. When you went out there and you got your butt kicked on national television against a team, all due respect to Washington State, like congratulations. Like that was a well-earned victory. Y'all played such a good game. Good luck next week against UW and the rest of your season. Nothing but respect. But Tech didn't play Georgia tonight. Didn't get their butt kicked in Austin or something like at the end of last year. This is a team that on paper you should have been at least been competitive. I know this is on the road, and you got your ass handed to you, to be honest. And I would stick my foot up the team's butt this week. I don't care, if it wears them out for the UNT game. I'm going to let them know that, that's unacceptable. That's just my opinion. That's you asked me what if I want to win the game, that's what I would do. I would, the whole tip of the cap to leash fat girlfriends type deal, like, come on, but then again, I would do that with my coaching staff too, behind closed doors. Like, what are we doing? And I think you have to reevaluate this follow the book no matter what thing. And I don't know if McGuire's ever going to do that, to be honest, but I think he's prepared that it's not going to work sometimes. And he's willing to weather that storm. And I respect him for that, but and he's right. They wouldn't have won some of the games that they did in 2022 if they didn't have that approach. But this isn't that team. And the offense does seem to be inefficient. So I think you have to rethink everything you're doing, because a 1-point victory over an FCS team and then going and getting your ass handed to you by a Washington State team is telling me that what we're doing right now isn't working. So a lot of things need to change. Those are the solutions. Now, in terms of just firing everybody, that's not where I'm at right now. I get why people are, but that's just not where I'm at. Let's see, man. Got spun down. Give me a second. I was not expecting this much activity this late. I'm not going to lie. Damn. Okay, fine. Before Morton got hurt against Oklahoma State a few years ago, he looked to me like he wanted to run it a little bit. I wonder if holding him back because of injuries is holding back his game. But yeah, I mean, just answering questions tonight and just watching the game, I was thinking that, like, does that stun a lot of what he brings to the table? Maybe so, but I don't think you could risk him taking a lot of hits on that shoulder. So it's kind of a catch-22 right now. Team Crop Dusters, what's up, man? Said props to Jared for doing this live stream. Brutal. This is a little brutal, but hey, I'm not digging ditches. Again, this is an honor and a privilege to get to do this. I'm talking about a sport I love, honestly, a university I love. So I really appreciate y'all joining me too. TTU96 Red Reader Co-op says the offense and defense are screwed. Well, I'm not going to argue with you after tonight. Jay says, are we going to throw the ball deep anymore? Maybe twice a game, it looks like. 20 screenplays is not it. They did pop a couple today, but it was a lot of screens, man. Team Crop Duster says offense has no identity. I agree. It really doesn't. I don't think this offense knows what it wants to do. I've thought that for at least a year, if not two. Like, I actually asked Kit, like, what is the offense's identity? It was early in that season. I think it was 2 years ago. And he said he didn't know yet. Or maybe it was last year. He said he didn't know yet, which was fair. But they don't early in the season. But I don't think they've established an identity in 2+ seasons at this point. Tyler King says, I think the only two offensive plays that work are Taj running and wheel routes. Will Hammond get on the field if Morton continues to struggle? I mean, it's JFC 23 asked me. I think there's a possibility. I mean, I've actually had people tell me that Hammond's the true backup quarterback. So I don't know. He's a true freshman too. I do think the future is bright for him, but I want to see it. Rocco Purley says, where was Micah Hudson tonight? Ohio State and Alabama have been playing their 5-star first receivers. Yeah, I don't know. Game 1, I didn't have a problem with it. This game, I think he had the first play called for him. Washington State covered it. But I didn't see him a whole lot more, and I don't really understand it. You saw Brady Boyd drop a pass late in the game. Why couldn't Micah go out there and get some run? I really don't understand. I don't have the answer for you on that. TT96 Red Ritter Co-op is total crap. I mean, I agree with you. CJ Stark says Hudson and Hammond are going to be gone by this time next year. No chance they stay. Why do you say that? I don't think I agree with you on that. KCM says Morton was miserable. His shoulder was fine. I mean, that's probably the truth. Team Crop Duster says screen have a place when you're constantly getting blitzed by 5 or 6 hats, but it can't be a staple otherwise. I think they ran too many screens. I do. Lisa Marie Tev says number 4 stays open every time, which is crazy. Jordan Brown had a good catch tonight. He's steady, is what Jordan Brown is. I like Jordan Brown. I think that's, I don't know if that's JLC or JFC. I couldn't blame you either way. 23 says 34-58. It's insane. Yeah, but they all were a little dink and dunk. Again, this is the dink and dunk offense, not the air raid, the dink and dunk. Back to being bad at the basics. Can't make easy blocks. Missed tackles. Not in a good spot to make a play. Yeah, don't forget the penalties either. Penalties, man. Drive me crazy. Especially all those pre-snap penalties. Kidley goes before Barron. Probably. Maybe. I don't know. Gary Puckett. We're definitely the worst team in the Big 12. Maybe in all of college football. It's probably an exaggeration. But, I mean, you can make an argument. So disappointed. Turtleneck gang. You wear turtlenecks? I don't know, man. Look, I don't think I can rock a turtleneck. I actually make fun of people I see in turtlenecks. It's kind of a thing. My girlfriend and I. But hey, do you, man? I am disappointed as well. I'm honestly putting on a good face. I've been thinking about this game for months. I even asked McGuire about it at Big 12 Media Day, and he kind of downplayed. And he said because it's not a Big 12 game. He's right, but this was an opportunity to rewrite a lot of negative narratives, the slow starts to seasons, the road challenges, and just kind of set the tone with on paper. The schedule is set up easy, easy, but I would say, you have a couple buys this year, which is different. You don't have to play Kansas State or Utah. Things are set up, 7 home games, that kind of thing. But right now, it looks like it's going to be a struggle to win a game, period. And like somebody said, UNT, nervous about that. If you won this game, started off 2-0, I think it just really would have set up your season nicely. Now you got this really tough loss where you just played undisciplined, terrible football, and some big-time injuries. It's just, I don't want to be overly negative, but it was a really bad loss. I mean, this was a bad night tonight. I mean, there's no way around it. Turtleneck Gang says, I'm calling it right now, 3-9. Mike Bauer says, you're a good man doing this so late after such a disappointing game. I probably couldn't sleep anyways. Like I said, I don't want to say upset. That's dramatic. I mean, upset's like, when real stuff happens. It's football. But I'm very disappointed. I feel like I have an idea of what this team's going to be this year now, unfortunately. And while there's some good players, some good aspects to it, I'm disappointed for the players and the coaches too, and just for the team in general. It was a really poor performance. So I'm probably not going to be asleep for a while anyways. So thank you for being on here. Turtleneck says 4-8 at best. I mean, I'm not going to argue against that right now. It's hard to take up for this team right now. I mean, with what we've seen. Mikey J says, with Brooks out, it seems like it would be obvious that you play Brown more along with Dickey and Valdez just to make up for the production. Hoping it opens with the pass. No, they said, hey, let's Atmo. Air the mother out. And it didn't work out. Except most of the passes were really short. Man without playing, where's Micah Hudson? It's a good question. He should have played more tonight. Jacob's View says the book is right over thousands of that scenario, but they don't have that many. I mean, I understand the math, kind of. I'm mathematically challenged. I get the theory. I do. I just also think there's some scenarios like if you're in a defensive struggle, you have an inefficient offense, you're on your own side of the field. Maybe you should punt the ball. Turn against Houston and blow us out. I don't know about all that. CJ Stark says, "Are the donors for the Matador Club and SEC gang or SEC going to demand some change?" I mean, at some point they will. They're not just going to stand by that, investing all this money and time, and obviously clearly care about Texas Tech, and just going to stand by, like, "Oh, this is fine," and sit in the burning house, sipping coffee, saying this is fine. That's not how those type of personalities and people roll, in my experience. Whether they're going to want heads to roll like immediately after this, I don't know about that. They're going to have to show some improvement. And I do think somebody said before that a coordinator will probably go before, which would be Kitley. Let's be honest, it's not going to be DeRitter before McGuire does. But this is an ugly start to the season after an ugly start to the last season. Gary Puckett says Tech's defense couldn't stop a parked car. I disagree with that. I mean, I thought it actually stood up and made some plays tonight. Maybe that's just comparing to the first week against ACU. But I felt there was a point in the game where I thought the defense played well enough for Tech to at least be competitive, unlike the offense. And then some special teams blunders, to be honest, early on. A lot of questions about Micah Hudson. I don't blame y'all. I agree. Like last week, I was like, come on, let's tap the brakes. But I don't blame y'all this week. Why not? I mean, certainly in the second half when you were getting blown out. Ryan Palmore said, "Do you think Kitley's beginning to feel some pressure? McGuire has to cover his ass soon." Yeah, I think Kitley felt pressure last season. I mean, it's not easy being an offensive coordinator at Texas Tech, in the last 25 years since Mike Leach set the bar so high. But a lot of people are unhappy with Coach Kitley and have been going back to last season, maybe even back to 2022, to be honest. The Sigma Coach said, "Do you think it could partially be a culture issue?" Man, I have not noticed a culture problem, but let me tell you something. Losing like this and feeling all the scrutiny, all these players are going to hear their friends and all their girlfriends, talk smack or, what have you, all the stuff from folks like me and us and the fans. I mean, losing can break up culture, and it gets to be where what the message coming from the coaches starts to get ignored. I have not seen any evidence other than the product on the field. Let's be honest. I have not seen any evidence of there being a culture problem at Texas Tech. I really haven't. No discipline, George Bradley. I can't argue against that. I mean, again, I'm gonna get all fired up, go WWE, but all those pre-snap penalties, man, I don't like it, and I'm not going to forgive it. I'm not going to make excuses about it. It's not good. It speaks to an undisciplined football team, and I'm really surprised, to be honest. Tournament Gang has a couple messages. He loves all the Tech fans. Better days ahead. For now, we suffer. He says Barrymore's a backup quarterback. Mike Wazowski says, "I think we didn't get something beautiful." That's a true story. DJ Reckham has an interesting question. He says, Weave, Texas Tech, has been terrible or mediocre for 15 years now. Will Hoka ever be held accountable for giving Cliff an extension after 1 year? Which, man, I agree with you on that. Hiring Wells and now hiring Joey. Everyone is terrible. Well, you go back even to Hoka's time with Miami. I mean, his past, his ledger, so to speak, of hiring coaches is not good in football. The Kingsbury contract was rough. Some people that I really respect within Texas Tech and around the program disagree with me on that. to me, if you're man, and I went to school in Kingsbury, did heroic stuff. And some of the cool stuff he did behind the scenes that he demanded would not go public. Like, what a great dude! What a tough hombre. Huge fan of Kingsbury, the man and the quarterback at Texas Tech, but he was not a good head coach when he was here at Texas Tech, and it was plain to see anybody um, calling it like it is. So, yeah, that was a bad contract. Wells, I mean, I asked him when Wells was fired because he said it was his hire. He did this whole weird presser thing at night, called us all in outside the football facility. It was really weird. It was odd. He said it was like my hiring, my guy, all that. And Wells was never really accepted, by almost anybody. Uh, and when he was fired, uh, I asked Hoka in that press conference, like, "Hey, this is your guy. You said you're going to bring him in. Why did it not work out?" And being an athletic director is basically, again, like being a head coach of a Power Four school. It's kind of a politician's gig. So, I wouldn't say he shied away from answering it, but not a whole lot to the answer there. I don't know exactly. I'd be lying if I said I knew exactly. I mean, you could have a pretty good idea who's pulling the strings with whose names on what. And then there's some people that I have a pretty good idea behind the scenes that don't have their names on buildings, uh, making some strong suggestions. But I really don't know the dynamic. I'd be lying if I said if I knew the dynamic of how much power Hoka wields right now in terms of making those big decisions on hiring and firing coaches. Because I know that Wells was kind of a big deal for some people with deep pockets. So um, I don't know. A lot of people really like Hoka, and I don't get in the whole. It's with a university like this in a college town. It's very much like small town politics. Like I'm not going to jump in there. I'm not. People aren't going to use me to get their point across and all that. I'm going to cover the sports aspect of it. Keep my ears open, of course, but uh, I really don't. I can't say for sure what kind of standing Hoka is in terms of how much power he actually wields at this point. Obviously, it's still a lot. I mean, he's the athletic director, but in terms of those big decisions and like if his seat is hot at all or not, to me, I would say no. But then again, I mean, seems like hiring the right football coaches is kind of a big deal. So. PS says offensive game plan hurts my head. Me too. He said, "You think should give the run?" Yeah, QB option with Brown to see what happens. I agree. I think so too. Didn't Kitley get extended? Yeah, I think everybody, both the court, yeah, the coaching staff, a lot of the guys within the coaching staff got extended. Dark Soul says, "Hi, I'm watching from Bangladesh." Hey, how you doing? Dark Soul. Uh-oh. Patrick Branch says it's an effing mess, the whole team. Hard to argue against it. Reckham said, "We need this therapy. Your voice is Red Raider lost therapy. Give us all the time you can." I'm coming up on an hour. I didn't think I'd go a half hour, but I'll probably stop at an hour. It's pretty late. But hey, if you can get anything out of it, then I'm glad. And thanks for being on. Johnny MF James says Joey has to go, not just Kidley. I don't know if that'd be the right thing, to be honest. I know that's that's hard to say right now after that performance, but let's tap the brakes on that one. Casey M says Keely has to go. I don't enjoy saying that. Yeah, me either. 6-6, man. I would take 6-6 right now, to be honest. And Johnny MF James says Kirby didn't hire Joe. He can't blame him for this high school one. All right, that's a little extreme, but yeah, I mean, I've heard that several times as well. You're probably right. It's kind of what we were talking about before. Yeah, Billy Blueheart says you can't fire head coaches every 2 years. Very hard to ever get good doing that. That's true. The kind of the rebuild and constantly redoing the roster. You know, it's not sustainable. So I think some patience is required. Jerry Hill says Morton needs to run more. I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, I agree. It'd be nice to have a quarterback, that has that option. I think that anytime football, I've been like that for over a decade now. You want a dual threat quarterback. I mean, you do. It changes the way defenses play you. I mean, it really does. I mean, we saw that. I don't know if anybody watched the SMU and they lost, but SMU BYU game. But BYU played SMU completely differently depending on who was in there. More the running style or Preston Stone, who he could run, but he was more the pocket passer. I mean, they just blitzed him all night because they weren't worried about him scoring out and breaking off a big run. They had to play I can't remember his name, but the other SMU quarterback is a pretty good quarterback. Completely differently because he could be explosive with his legs. And then SMU got in the game. At least they ended up losing, but they at least were competitive after that. What grades would you give the offense and defense this week? Offense a F, F minus, a G, whatever. 0.0. Defense C plus. I mean, you get 300 yards rushing, but they were put in so many bad situations. So the defense was better this week. Patrick Branch says, it seems like we throw the ball to the sideline every play. I mean, you're not wrong. Turtleneck Gang says, we'll finish 4-8. I mean, I can't argue against that. Rocco Perley says, despite the numbers given up, I thought the defense was serviceable tonight. The offensive performance and play calling put the defense in horrible situations all game long. I agree with you almost completely on that. And I would add Joey McGuire's decisions to go for it. Book, analytics, be damned. I'm just saying he's ultimately making those decisions. The defense, by everybody else almost, including the special teams, in at least one case, was put in terrible. Like, coming off that ACU performance, it's like the whole rest of the team says, how can we make things tougher on the defense? Let's all get together and make things as tough as possible on this defense that struggled against FCS ACU. And that's what they did. And the defense actually held up a lot better than last week. And they showed some heart, some fourth down stops, some short yard stops, some turnovers, things like that. They were much better in coverage, though Washington State did drop a lot of passes. Pool Paramedic says, you always ask the best question, man. Thanks. Appreciate that. Or are you talking to somebody else? Somebody in this thread. If you're talking about me, then thanks. But if you're talking about somebody else, then that's cool too. Yeah, Charlie Gang says we have to come to the realization that Tech isn't good at all, any good at all. I mean, that is the only input we have so far through 2 games. Jerry Hill says Tech never showed up. Joel Heim says young team. Okay. I mean, Tom TT Rex says I'm picking North Texas next week, hoping that I'm wrong. Would gladly be wrong. Yeah, I get it. Jason Baumgartner says the QB runs seem effective against them. Wonder if it could have tried that more with Cam Brown. Who knows? Yeah, it was late in the game, though. You know what I mean? So I don't know how much stock we could put into it. Would have been nice to see something different for sure. Jared Gustafus says, can we just calm the down? Look bad the last 2 weeks, but it seems like just cleaning up mental errors fixes everything. I mean, I'm kind of between what you're saying. Like you seem beyond level headed. You're kind of like that. This is fine guy. And everybody's like fire everybody, everything. I'm between. Of course, I disagree with everybody just to piss everybody off, but that's really where I am. I'm between major freak out, fire everybody, and like this is fine because it's not fine at all. Okay, Hale Hughes says, Jarrett, McGuire typically has his assistants hand in their grades to him by noon. What grade would you give the offense, the defense, special teams? Yeah, like I said, F for the offense. I mean, penalties, turnovers, inefficient plays. I didn't like the play calls either. Defense, C plus, maybe. I did this last week. It's going to be even tougher this week, but I'll do a rewatch and I'll like break down the game. I think it was like 4,000 words this last week that I published Wednesday. But I'll basically spend a day going over the game and giving my notes and thoughts. And again, I swear, I mean, join up or not, I appreciate you being on the show, but that is a VIP story. If I'm going to spend a whole day working on something to write 4,000 words, it's going to be behind the paywall. But if I go back and see, maybe the defense played even better than I thought. That's what I'm suspecting. But then again, they did give up 300 rushing yards, no matter how many bad situations they were put in. So, and then special teams, I mean, I can't give them anything better than a B minus. I mean, made field goal. Nice play by John Curry on that punt coverage, but you had a shanked punt and a turnover. So now I'm going to give a C minus for special teams. F, C plus, C minus. Kenny Perry was out coach big time. I mean, he didn't have old boy drop the ball or shank the punt. No, I don't think so. Beach Ninja, can I ask ZK why the QB seem to be regressing? Again, that's a leading question. I will ask him, give your evaluation of how you think, just like I did last week when he had a good game. How do you, what's your evaluation of how Morton played and stuff like that? But to say like, why do your quarterback suck so bad? That's not how I do my thing, to be honest. What whiskey are you drinking tonight? My man Sean Dillon, producer of the radio show. Thanks for jumping on here, man. Good, you did a good job tonight or earlier tonight with the show. By the way, not drinking whiskey tonight. Believe it or not. I mean, I've had a couple beers, but spread out over hours. But just not even in the mood. Like I'm almost like too sad. It's like again, like heroin maybe or poison. Shouldn't say that. Don't do that. If you listen to me, don't do that. Or I was thinking Whataburger, but I'm probably just gonna nurse a beer and go to sleep so I can have a day, like I said, at home with my family tomorrow. DJ Reckham said this team is like Colorado, really good at talk. Yeah, I don't really want to hear it right now, to be honest. Max Gaming and Creative. Hi, God bless you, Johnson. Okay, God bless you. Thank you. Yeah, recycle scrap says, and we have the injury bug again. Yeah, I know. Injury to insult, right? Porsche for sure. I mean, obviously Taj didn't play. Harvey Dyson being out outside linebacker didn't help. Vinny Scurry, he may be out for the season. I don't know that. Don't hold me to it. I'm just saying it didn't look good. He was carted off. So, ooh. Tech and Tortilla says, how long can we wait for Morton to get in a rhythm? Does Taj fix the offensive opportunities? Well, I think you do have a big decision in terms of Morton because, I mean, he's a week away. It was just ACU, but from having a great game. Tonight he was terrible. Is it a good precedent just to yank a quarterback after one bad game? Or do you see what he could do against UNT and then go from there? Part of me does think, and I swear I have not had a talk with him behind the scenes or anything because I don't want it to look like that. But I'm wondering if maybe Joey McGuire feels like that too, like a Cameron Brown, or not just him over Morton, but just that style of having a physical running quarterback to go with a good running game would pair well with his defense. I mean, I've thought about that before tonight. So, and he's even mentioned, kind of like comparing to like a Kansas State type offense. That he wouldn't mind having that. So, all right, getting down to it now. I mean, dang, we still got a lot of questions. P.S. says, Jared, thank you for your time. Thank you all for your time and being on here for sure. Brian Topless Bar says, we will not lose to UNT and we'll get better with Taj back. That's assuming Taj comes back. I mean, I don't know that he's coming back. All right, that's going to do it. I've gone over an hour, and I didn't plan on doing that, to be honest, this late. But y'all had some good questions. I really appreciate y'all being on here. Obviously, 37-16, and the way it looked wasn't the result any of us were expecting or hoping for, or at least most of us were expecting or hoping for. But hey, week to week proposition. Let's see how they bounce back against UNT. We'll have tons of content on Inside the Red Raiders. I'll have some on this channel on YouTube as well. But for now, thank you for watching, and until next time.